It's September 1944, and a group of beleaguered British paratroopers at Arnhem are completely cut off, 8 miles from where they were supposed to land. Their radios don't work, and the bridge they are here to capture is in German hands. Across the Rhine, Polish paratroopers are supposed to reinforce them. They are close enough to see each other, but too far to coordinate. And the ferry meant to connect them was destroyed. With no communications, no crossing, and no way to bring the plan back together, the operation falls back on its last remaining option. A single soldier is sent across the river with a message by hand. Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery, commander of British ground forces, wanted to end the war by Christmas. With his latest plan during Operation Market Garden, 30,000 American and British paratroopers would drop behind German lines and capture a chain of bridges across the Netherlands. British tanks would then race up a single highway, cross the Rhine at Arnhem, and drive straight into Germany. In mid-September 1944, as planning was finalized, Montgomery asked Lieutenant General Frederick Browning, who oversaw the airborne operation, whether he believed the 1st Airborne Division could take and hold the main bridge at Arnhem for 2 whole days until ground forces arrived to relieve them. Browning replied that his troops could manage 4, but also added an ominous warning: "I think we might be going a bridge too far." Major General Roy Urquhart commanded the division. Since transport aircraft could not deliver all the troops at once, it would take 3 days to get everyone on the ground. Few areas near Arnhem were suitable for landing gliders, forcing the leader to pick drop zones 8 miles from the bridge. When the division's intelligence officer obtained evidence that 2 German panzer divisions were refitting near the area and tried to raise the alarm, the headstrong Browning dismissed the warnings and had him sent on sick leave. Even Allied headquarters, which had confirmed the presence of German armor through reconnaissance, chose to proceed with the plan anyway. The first paratroopers landed smoothly on September 17th. After regrouping quickly, organized columns were moving west toward Arnhem within just a few hours. The initial operations caught the German forces off guard. Even Field Marshal Walter Model, commanding the area, assumed the landings were aimed at him and hastily abandoned his headquarters. 3 British battalions then set out for the bridge, with Lieutenant Colonel John Frost leading one along the Riverside Road, advancing east through villages and tree-lined streets, while the other 2 pushed north on parallel routes. Their progress slowing almost at once and forcing them into multiple scattered fights. Only Frost's battalion made progress, reaching Arnhem by nightfall, welcomed by cheering Dutch civilians. Once there, however, they found that 2 of the planned crossings were already gone. The nearby railway bridge had been blown, and the pontoon bridge dismantled. Only the main road bridge remained, which Frost and his roughly 740 men captured on the northern end, but failed to take on the southern side. As the sun set on the first day, radio communication collapsed almost immediately due to the wooded terrain, causing the moving battalions to contact headquarters. Trying to find his brigade commanders, Urquhart himself left his command post and became separated from his own headquarters for 2 long days, hiding with a local family to avoid capture. On September 18th, German forces reinforced the blocking line west of Arnhem, cutting off the very route Lieutenant Colonel Frost had used to reach the bridge the day before. British battalions tried time and time again to fight through but were stopped, as was a coordinated afternoon attack. When a German reconnaissance battalion attempted to force its way onto the bridge, the defenders met it at close range. Anti-tank weapons and small arms fire struck the column as it advanced, knocking out half of the 22 Wehrmacht armored vehicles and leaving more than 70 men dead in the streets all around the approaches, halting the attack before it had a chance to gain a foothold. That afternoon, a second lift of paratroopers arrived overhead. As the aircraft passed over the drop zones, ground fire erupted from positions held by Landstorm Nederland, a Waffen-SS unit composed of Dutch collaborators. Some men were hit before they reached the ground, others scattered as they landed under fire. Yet once the shooting eased, civilians emerged from nearby villages with water and wine in their hands, convinced that liberation had finally reached the Netherlands. As the sun rose the next morning, reinforcements had reached the British units trapped west of Arnhem, and commanders believed they finally had enough strength to fight through to Frost at the bridge. Just after dawn, the assault stepped off along a narrow strip of ground, boxed in by the railway line to the north and the river to the south. German observers spotted the movement almost immediately, and machine guns and mortars caught the lead battalion in open ground, striking from 3 directions and breaking its formation within hours. By early afternoon, the attack had failed. With no route forward, the nearly 500 survivors west of Arnhem began pulling back under pressure, drifting toward Oosterbeek several miles to the west. To the north, 2 more battalions remained pinned in place and made no progress at all. By the time Urquhart made it back to his headquarters, the scale of the disaster was finally clear. 8 of the division's 9 infantry battalions had been badly damaged or scattered. Frost and his men were still holding the bridge, but the rest of the division no longer had the strength to reach them. Faced with this reality, on the 20th, Urquhart ordered all remaining units to concentrate at Oosterbeek and form a defensive perimeter around the town, holding the ferry crossing at Driel while they waited for XXX Corps to arrive. Throughout the day, the defensive perimeter around Oosterbeek, roughly 3 miles in circumference, was held by about 3,600 men. Though cut off from the bridge and surrounded, the British still controlled the ferry crossing and believed relief was on the way. Back at the bridge, Frost and his men had been holding out for 3 days with dwindling ammunition and no reinforcements. On the afternoon of September 20th, Frost finally made radio contact with Urquhart and learned they were unreachable. Mere moments later, a single mortar round wounded him, forcing command to pass to Major Frederick Gough. The fighting continued to worsen, with German units clearing the position with tanks and artillery until both sides agreed to a brief 2-hour truce, and the wounded, including Frost, were carried out from the ruins and taken into captivity. By the morning of September 21st, the defense of the Arnhem road bridge had ended, and German armor was free to cross. That evening, the Polish 1st Parachute Brigade finally took off from England after days of weather delays. More than 1,000 Polish paratroopers dropped south of the Rhine near Driel and moved toward the river, expecting to cross by ferry and reinforce the British perimeter on the northern bank. Instead, they found the ferry sunk to prevent German use, leaving the brigade stranded on the southern bank, though their arrival drew German attention south of the Rhine. At Oosterbeek, pressure from the west forced the perimeter to contract, abandoning key exposed high ground overlooking the river, allowing German forces to observe the crossing that the defenders depended on for resupply. Artillery contact was finally established with XXX Corps to the south, and shellfire soon began landing around the shrinking perimeter. Across the river, when wireless contact again failed, one soldier, Private Ernest Archer, swam the Rhine with a message promising rafts that night. The Polish brigade waited on the southern bank until well into twilight, until they realized no help was coming, and with no crossing possible, they pulled back to Driel and dug in, still separated from the force they had been sent to reinforce. Over the next 72 hours, German forces launched countless attacks against the Oosterbeek perimeter, shrinking it without mercy. South of the river, attempts to reinforce the position continued to fail. On the night of September 22nd, Polish troops prepared for another crossing when assault boats from XXX Corps arrived after midnight, many of them without oars or proper equipment. Under fire and in darkness, only a little over 100 men reached the northern bank before dawn, far short of what was needed. The heaviest attack yet struck the southeastern edge of the perimeter on September 25th with infantry backed by Tiger tanks. Artillery fire from XXX Corps forced the attackers back briefly, but the position could not be held. With no other choice, Urquhart ordered a withdrawal. By dawn, more than 2,000 British troops and a small number of Poles had escaped, while 8,000 men were killed, wounded, or taken prisoner. The division that landed in Holland only days before had ceased to exist as a fighting force. Arnhem was the last major defeat the Germans inflicted on the Allies in the West. The fighting remained difficult, but the British-led forces were able to launch a massive airborne and amphibious assault across the Rhine in spring 1945. With this, the Reich was finished.